Welcome, everybody. We are back. We don't know what happened, community. Something happened. I guess we was rubbing some officials or somebody wrong because they deleted our broadcast. But we are back up. We're going to try to finish today's conversation. We are going to try to wrap up here 15 after the hour. You guys know our typical time is 2 to 4 p.m. We'll try to go a little bit after as everybody's been so patiently hanging in there. The conversation was getting good. It was getting real. I guess it was getting a little triggering for some people because all of a sudden the broadcast went down. But again, we are back. We're going to continue that conversation. I know Steve ended with a powerful point that he was making. So we'll try to jump back into this and finish up today's conversation, which I think has just been really a highlight for community. I've seen the text messages. I see the information. I hear people saying, hey, I need to finish this. Great education, great information and resources for the community. So community, as you all start tuning back in, we'll go ahead and just continue to open up. I know we lost one of the brothers here. He'll try to get back in. But we was talking about the policies. We was talking about some of the things that need to happen and the changes with DPH. As you all know, I've been a big yeller and screamer about DPH and the services and the work that they need to do better to be in outreach, making sure community get connected with those resources. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it back over to Steve, and we're going to jump back in and try to finish up that part that we was talking about DPH and the services that's provided. I think Steve was at the 360 health situation or whatever right there, Steve.
Yeah, we can kind of shift. I do want to say that, DPH has a new director of behavioral health services, Dr. Koonens, and I do find her to be responsive. And I do think she is going to make every effort to ensure that the DPH programs are in line with the community. And we know if they're not, well, I'm sure we can just continue to have conversations with them. One last thing, what I do find alarming is that, like, Victoria and I, as I've mentioned, have both been through the system ourselves, had our own challenges in life, got out of prison, and we both are in leadership roles here. And we are constantly challenged because we are so rooted in the community. And we only want to implement programs that are representative of the community because we support approximately 5,000 clients that come to us via the district attorney, the public defender, and some judge. And then all of a sudden we get attacked. Law enforcement. And I was like, dude, you got shit fucked up. Like, I am the farthest thing from a cop that you could imagine. Now, I'm not anti-police by any means, but, I will say my life changed February 28th, 2008 in a set of handcuffs. That was the day. Everything changed. It was a shitty situation, but it gave my brain a few years to heal and I could start making some decisions. What I see on the streets now is a mess. People they're like zombies. It's like The Walking Dead. So I do think that we're going to start holding community roundtables, and I've talked to John about being present and hopefully broadcasting them on the network. And we're going to keep our ear to the ground. We fund 50 programs right now. And as Cedric, Craig, and others can tell you, the community speaks and we respond. As I said, we've recently launched an abstinence-based therapeutic community with Westside Positive Directions, and several other programs. Our reentry center is also the first in the state behavioral health focused reentry center that's managed by the University of California, San Francisco. So we're talking about mental health needs of clients. We didn't have the luxury to refer them to another building, to meet a clinician, to get an assessment, to get another referral. In real time, they come out of jail, they come over here, get an assessment, get connected to services immediately. So it's been very impactful. But John, I'd like to turn it back to you because your questions are fantastic, and I find it energizing.
Yeah, no, but this, everybody know this is both sides of the conversation, right? And again, we respect everybody's perspective. But I got a great question for Cedric or Calvin to answer, right? Because there are those people that's out there saying, "What's wrong with the harm reduction matter? People are still going to use drugs, so why not give them safe needles and give them a safe space to get high," right? We got those people out there too. So I want to hear from you and Cedric. What do y'all feel about that? The people who say that.
No one is saying not do that. What we are saying is that there needs to be more options. People need to have more choices. There needs to be other alternatives. That the only thing if the only thing you got going is needle exchange or etc., and there's nothing else going with that, then you're going to accept the needle exchange. What you see is what you get. What we're saying is that table needs to be filled with other sources of interventions that people can address, so that people can come and get what they want and what they need, and not have to accept what's given to them. And that's the only issue I have with it. I have no other issue with harm reduction. Harm reduction has its place in the world, just like abstinence base has its place in the world. And we need to be working together to make sure that our community gets healed, not against each other, with each other, to heal our community. And one is not better than the other. They all need to work together.
Yeah, I want to jump in on that question too. My problem with the harm reduction and the messaging in the system, like I'm not against harm reduction either, but the messaging that's out there is about using safely with, clean rigs and clean paraphernalia and using with dignity. They don't give equal messaging to people actually recover. When they stop using drugs, their lives get better. Like you never hear about that, right? And I just want to say, like, I got clean in a pair of handcuffs too. A judge gave me the opportunity to go to treatment, and I honestly didn't go to get clean. I went to get out of Santa Rita. I wouldn't have made that choice because my people in my circle didn't get clean. They died or they went to prison, and then they didn't even stop using, right? So that would have never been my choice because I didn't know that it was actually a possibility. And I think they're doing that to our community too. They're not letting them know that it is actually possible. And it's killing people.
And I just got one more. I mean, when you say use with dignity, I mean, what does that look like? What does using with dignity look like? I mean, I'm not trying to be a hater or trying to be disrespectful, but I just need you to tell me, how can you put that in an advertisement telling the people in the world that there's using with dignity? You know what I'm saying? And then turn around and look at the streets. I don't see anybody using with dignity on the streets. You know what I'm saying? It's like, come on, what kind of messages is that?
Hey, that's a great. I didn't even think of that, but I would think that their messaging was using dignity. We giving you safe tools to be in a safe space. But if you don't have a space, they out on the street, so it is no dignity. I guess. I mean, I just would,
So, John, can I add one thing to that? In the documentary,
Go ahead.
They talked about that piece of paper that showed how to shoot up properly, so that you don't give yourself sepsis and all that. You use a clean rig, you find the vein, you register.
Until you're high.
I'm cool with all of that. But at the end, when that nonprofit added in enjoy your high at the bottom, they crossed the line from harm reduction to drug promotion. That's my opinion on that. That's really what it is. I mean, I can't be any more. And then, I don't think this conversation should end without us talking about the advent of illicit fentanyl on our street, the arrival of fentanyl in 2018, and how that's completely changed the game. And it's changed our need to have a different approach to how we're handling the drug crisis, because you have over 1,200 people that have died in the last 19 months in San Francisco from drug overdose, and most of that was caused by illicit fentanyl. It has contaminated the drug supply. So when you buy crack or cocaine, it's got fentanyl in it. Or you buy meth, it's got fentanyl in it. And you're overdosing and dying, you don't even know it. You got kids buying pills off of Snapchat. Okay, and they think they're buying Xanax off of Snapchat, but it turns out it's an illicit fentanyl pill, and they're overdosing and dying. You've been seeing it all over the news. Celebrities, all these people dying. Michael K. Williams, everybody, they died from accidental overdose, which really, at some point, you have to start looking at that. Is that an accidental overdose or is that a poisoning? And so these are the kinds of questions we also need to ask and bring to the forefront, because the arrival of fentanyl in 2018 on the streets of San Francisco has really changed the game out there for people that are using. It's like Russian roulette every time you use.
One other thing is,
Cedric, go ahead.
One other thing about, remember where harm reduction started, man? It was in response to the AIDS epidemic, right? And so they wanted to stop the spread of disease, so they were giving out condoms and syringes. Now Craig who dropped off the call. If you ask 10 people, they can't define what it is, right? And so I think it's should be part of the city's response. It shouldn't be the response. that there's many paths to the top of the hill. All of us have jobs. All of us have friends, family, and that all happened for one common thread. We all got clean. And so we want people to live differently, but we allow them to live the same way they're living and expect different results. And that in and of itself is crazy. And, you know, it's a very controversial topic in San Francisco. You know, I get a lot of heat when I talk about it, but I feel like if we don't share the truth, if we don't talk to people who've been through it themselves, then what good are we doing anyone? What good is it? Then we just are going along with the status quo. What's happening in the streets of San Francisco is a nightmare. Now, I don't blame any one city department. I don't blame anybody. But at this point, we are all responsible to fix it. And, you know, there were some statistics that somebody sent out. I can't remember where they were. There's been a ton of arrests in the Tenderloin by the police for drug dealing. My question is, I think it was over 1,000. Has anybody, drug dealers, repeat offenders, what is the disposition of these drug dealers? Nobody really stays in jail anymore since COVID, so that's fine. But is there a consequence to their action? Does anybody go to prison anymore? Does anybody, or we just like let people out as victims, like they're victimized, right? Oh, you do this because you have to. It's crazy, man. And I don't condone what's going on in the streets of San Francisco. It's embarrassing to me. I have friends from out of town that come here and see what the conditions are like. Dude, I will never come back to this city. It's gotten that bad. You know, the hospitality industry has not bounced back in LA. It's back at like 70%. And the hospitality industry in San Francisco is at like 28%. And I'm telling you, if we don't clean up the streets, it's not going to get any better. People don't want to come here. I read the crime report by the FBI. You know, crime's down 19%. I live here, man. It don't feel like it's down. Certainly doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, I don't like data because data can be skewed. But, you know, I want to ask Cedric, you know, and why, Tom, that's a great, you know, kind of headway is really educating community about fentanyl, right? We have seniors who are watching now, people who may not be exposed to what's going on. But when we're talking about fentanyl, you know, can you guys kind of elaborate, like, what is fentanyl? Like, is it PCP? Is it like meth? Is it like, what is it? Because I know a lot of people, we've had a couple of deaths in the community where people were snorting cocaine that was laced with fentanyl, right? And then the other question is Cedric, because I know he's out there in the community. Why is it that we don't get these nonprofit organizations in some of our communities? It seems like we focus on the Tenderloin, but we forget about Bayview, we forget about Fillmore, we forget about the OMI. Why are we not getting these substance abuse services in these outer communities? And it seems like we're just focus driven in the Tenderloin.
Cedric, on mute.
So if you want, I'll just explain the fentanyl part, and then Cedric, you guys can talk about the other stuff. So fentanyl is a synthetic opioid. It's like heroin, but it's made in a lab, but it's 10 to 100 times stronger than heroin. It's an opioid, so it's a depressant. It slows down your cardiovascular system, right? So when you inhale it or ingest it or shoot it up, it slows down your heart rate. And it's really easy because it's so strong to overdose. So if you've never done it before, you can use as little as 2 milligrams, and that could kill you. It could actually stop your heart and you could die. And that's what's happening a lot out there. In addition to that, it only lasts about 2 hours compared to heroin, which is about a 6-hour high. And so the withdrawals come on quicker when you're a regular user out there. So you have to use it more. As you use it more, your tolerance builds up, it gets stronger, you need to continue to use more, your addiction gets deeper and deeper, and that's part of what we're facing right now.
And then talking about, I mean, everyone knows why. It's the same old story about San Francisco and any other city in this country. Anywhere where a group of people that are not of the dominant culture are presiding, and especially where Black people are presiding, there are no services at all. They forget about it. Even sitting out in front of our office on 3rd and Newcomb, we don't even have a toilet out front. The Harm Reduction Coalition don't come out and pass out safe needles, their little harm reduction approach. They don't do any of that. We still numbered with the same old story that you hear all the time. The only store we have in this community are liquor stores. and the one little grocery store that we have charges you outrageous prices, $5 and $10 for a gallon of milk, things that you can't afford. So it forces you to go and buy liquor and go buy cigarettes. So it's basically just the same old thing that they do in all communities. And I'm still going back to the very beginning of what Craig was talking about, how we take a marginalized community and put them all in one area. San Francisco has been doing this even before that happened with 1st and 15 checks. They used to give the checks out on the 1st and 15th. This person had its dope sack this week, and he'll go to jail, and then he'll be replaced by someone else. This person, like the young people call it at one time, call them Knox, which people are drug users. Once they fade off, die, or go away in prison, then the next generation come on to be able to defend for themselves or be able to deal with being out in them streets on a day-to-day basis. Now we have fentanyl, which is in everything. Take me back to harm reduction again. At this part, the way San Francisco looked, it's like just like the pandemic was, we at epidemic proportions right now. And at this point, we need to take all hands on deck, which was going to take a community effort from all of us. And at some point, just can't blame politicians, can't blame the progressives. We all got to be able to stand up and to do our part, to be able to say what we want. Because just like you vote, just like you pay taxpayers money, you need to have a voice and say what you want and demand what you want. That's what has to happen in this city. And it's real strong that we have to do that. And I can't say it enough. And until I have no more breath in my body, this is what I'm going to always stand up and fight for. And a person should be able to say what they need to say in this city.
Wow, very powerful stuff, very passionate. We're going to have a part 2 of this conversation. So I'm going to be reaching out to Victoria and Steve. Like, this ain't it, because people are texting me like, man, I missed, so we're going to have to have a part 2 of this. But Cedric, I think you bring up a great point about the systemic racism and some of the issues that impact our community. But before I let you guys go, and I want everybody to give, some parting words to the community. I think this is a great conversation. I mean, we got more to go, and I know, Craig, you guys got more stuff to talk about. But I want to talk about this cannabis movement, okay? Because, cannabis is legalized now, right? But it's all over our cities. Our young people aren't involved with it. How much is this cannabis impacting what's going on in San Francisco, or is it just the opiates and the stronger drugs? Because I see a coalition that's happening with this cannabis. And, I got my strong opinions on it, but I want to hear from you and Craig. What y'all think about this cannabis here in San Francisco?
I try not to think about it. That's what my thinking is on it. Because, like I said, it's a gateway drug. It is what it is, and we need to be clear about that. And, on my own personal opinion, I'd rather people smoke weed than drink alcohol, because alcohol is the number one killer, to your body and to other people. But the other side of that is that we need to be clear that it's a gateway drug, and people need to be educated about the fact that that's what it is.
Wow, great information. Great information, Craig. I believe that education needs to happen, and we're going to keep this space over. And I think you hit it all day. You've been talking about the messaging. The biggest problem we have in our community when it comes to STDs, HIV, substance abuse, mental health is the messaging, the education, and the awareness. We need more of it. These organizations out there who has phenomenal resources can do a better job of outreach and educating the community. But go ahead, Cedric. I'm sorry for cutting you off, brother.
No, it's all right. But it's a whole lot of sides to it. And I always remind people, the ones that got a blunt in their mouth right now, think about who's running the culture now with it. It damn sure not the brother that used to sell dope on the corner that has marijuana. They don't have no stores. Very few of them have stores. And then very few of them are in the greatest part of the distribution. So my point is, it's just going to be another way of exploiting, talking about it as legal, but at the same time, all they're doing is exploiting people where they're going to force prices up. You only can get it at a certain place, and it's going to be an exclusive club of who's going to get it. But at the meantime, the ones that's on the street will still suffer from it because they're going to be charged with selling it illegally instead of selling it legally. Now, again, our culture sort of embraced the use of marijuana, because like even rap music today, it used to be a time they hated against people who use drugs, and they kind of uplifted selling the drugs. Now it's profound in music that using is part of the culture, whatever it is. And that, again, what you're going back to messaging again, those are the messages that we do in the subtle underground messaging that we're giving to our kids. And that's why us as parents, us as leaders of our community need to play more active roles. Going back to what you said originally, in prevention of being in our schools. Part of the problem going to schools, if you're on probation or parole, you can't go in your school to see your own child. And see, that's ridiculous. And on the other side is one point I just wanted to say before we left too, with this progressive movement in San Francisco. Now, the few people that are helping and supporting our community, I would say, is adult probation and even San Francisco Sheriff's Department. But because they're supplying funding, the progressives say it's police money that's going to help people. At this point, the way San Francisco is, we need all the help we can get. But I just wanted to make that point. Go ahead, Tom.
I agree 100% with you. It's about messaging, and I still say it to this day. The whole thing of this defund the police was misled. We should have really educated the community and talked about the militarized equipment, the hundreds of $millions that we invested in militarized in the community, right? We're removing that money. I think that sends a better message to the community than being straightforward and saying defund the police. We know what that does. It triggers people. It has people with the pushback. What we got to do is educate this message, and that's why I don't like this slogan stuff. A lot of times in these political parties, they always using slogans to try to get their message apart, and I think it divides the community. We have to be very intentional on how we educate people what we're doing, and I think our politicians have done a poor job of it. Come out and tell the people what you're really doing so that people are not offended or people are not on the fence. I think if they would have came out and said our police department is using $200 million to buy all this militarized equipment that we don't need in our community, we're removing that money and we're reinvesting back into the community organizations, I think that would have sold a little bit better across the country. But as soon as you start using words of defunding and taking money from police, first thing people think about is safety, and it triggers people. Same thing with this substance abuse and homelessness. How do we intentionally message what we're trying to do when we're talking about substance abuse, when we're talking about harm reduction? Like, we got to educate people, and we got to make the resources available. It's going to take the community. I like what you said. We have to be the change, but we have to be open. In this country, it was always a thing of giving people a second chance. I believe in second chances. I do a lot of reentry work with our young people that get out. I believe you have to give them an opportunity. You never know when the light switch is going to click on. But in this country, we have removed from that model. They don't believe in second chances, the way they treat people. Like you said, you can't go to school and see your kids if you're on parole or probation. You can't go back and give back. Those are the voices that we need our community to hear. And that's why I'm so glad you all are here today, because these testimonies is what our community needs to hear. Okay? We need the people who've been through it educating our community. They don't want to hear from somebody that's lost touch with the community. They don't even have an understanding of what's going on in our community. I agree with you when you talk about Cedric, culturally appropriate people. We have to have that. But our people, especially the Black community, we got to stop worrying about the messenger and get the message. You get what I'm saying? But I agree with you. We need to have a culturally appropriated people. But sometimes in our community, we got to get out of who's giving us the message. And if it's the good information, let's take that and move our community forward. Because a lot of times they do have some committed people, some committed allies want to give our community the right information. Go ahead, Cedric or Craig, whoever that was. Go ahead.
No, I'm just glad we having this conversation. We need to have more of it.
Yes, sir. I've been trying to get you for 6 months. This is the power of it, Craig. I've been telling you, come on. You and Cedric, y'all been running from me here on both sides of the conversation. We're gonna have a part 2, community, but we're getting close to that time, and I want to be respectful to you all. Y'all been patient. That video presentation is not going to go away. What happened before it cut off, it is there on our YouTube community. If you missed the first part of this, we had an issue today. I think we pissed some people off. They cut our broadcast off. Please go to our YouTube. Look at the first part of this video, of this presentation. We'll have both of them up. This was very powerful. Again, thank you, Steve and Dami, for putting this together. We need a part 2, community organization. Utilize our platform to have these difficult conversations. This is healing. Okay, when we talk about healing in our community, we're talking about having a difficult conversation. This is what we're doing here at both sides of the conversation. With that being said, okay, we're gonna start closing out. I want each person on this panel to give some parting words to the community. Talk to our people, give them some encouragement before they leave today. Maybe somebody's watching. They in the middle of trying to change their life. They don't know if they want to use or don't use. Maybe today's something that you all say before we part or make them think different. With that being said, we're gonna start with you, Craig, and we're gonna move around the panel.
Or I can say two things. Change is possible, recovery is real, and we need to force policy change.
Very, very powerful. There you go, elected officials, community. We got everybody boycotting KTVU for Frank Somerville. You just heard Craig. We need to boycott the policies. Let's get out there and let's work together as a community. Let's go. Brother Tom, go ahead and get a community support words.
I just would encourage the community to educate yourself about addiction, educate yourself about the drugs that are out there right now. If you're a Gen Xer like me, they're not the same drugs that you was using in the 80s and 90s. It's completely a different ball game now. So, and if you have kids, absolutely 100% talk to your kids and let them know that the drug supply out there that's on the street is contaminated right now. Don't use it. Make sure the drugs you're getting come from your doctor or they come from a cannabis dispensary, not from somebody up on the street, because chances are it's got that fentanyl in it and you could end up dead. So thank you.
Wow, great information. And definitely to all of our substance abuse organizations, all of our educating organizations, utilize this platform. Come on here on our Educational Thursdays. Do a PowerPoint presentation so we can educate our community and keep our community safe. We so graciously need it. Ms. Victoria, go ahead and talk to the community before we leave out today.
Thanks, John. I just want to emphasize, like, we can't forget about our kids, man. The messaging out there that you can use safely and weed is legal now, like, it's giving the wrong messages to our kids. It makes them think that everything's okay to do things. And our children should not have to see what they see on our streets. That is not okay. They should be safe to go outside and play on the sidewalk and do chalk and jump rope. And there's no place in some parts of our city for them to do that, and that's not okay.
And I agree 100% with you. I am tired of going to playgrounds, seeing needles and paraphernalia where our kids is playing. We got to have space for these people. And that's why I said about the harm reduction. If it's a safe place, I don't know what that looks like. But again, I do not like going in our parks and our kids are stepping over needles. It drives me nuts. And I lose a lot of respect for those people because even being high, you should have enough understanding where you at. And I know sometimes those are the only crevices in place that people could go, but it's very terrible, and I hate seeing it. But Brother Cedric, go ahead and leave some parting words to the community today.
All right. First word I'm going to say is accountability. And we need to move like from simply managing the symptoms of a problem to working to be able to prevent the problem. And we also need to be effective and find ways to be inclusive of community approach and community being a part of the solution and adding what the community wants and what the community needs. And again, I'm going to say accountability. And something else I will offer this. If you're struggling out there with addiction right now, if you have a family member struggling with addiction, if you don't have an understanding about what the addiction is, or whatever conversation that you just might need somebody to talk to, because I know during this pandemic, a lot of people have been separated. And we came out of the pandemic and started doing things that we wasn't accustomed to doing. But if you need people to reach out to, I know the new way now is to give your Twitter account, to give all these things, but I'm old school. Phone number 415-740-5587. Thank you.
Man, Brother Cedric, that was powerful. Can you put your number in the chat so we can get it on the screen for the people? That's what it's about. Being the change, being open. We need communication. We need people. We go through different things, and we definitely need to have that outreach, especially in these times that we are. So thank you very much for being a real leader of the community. That's what we need. More men like you and the people on this panel to lead by example and be willing to be there to help folks. Brother Steve Adami, go ahead and give some parting words, talk to the community.
Thank you, John. I'm always grateful to be part of your show. And like when we connect offline and kind of plan out other shows, it's always refreshing. Number one for the community, don't believe the narrative, man. People can and do get clean. If you walk around San Francisco, you never think it's not possible. And I would say that don't believe what you hear. Number two, leaders in the city should not just listen to the community, they should do what the community is asking them to do. Number three, you have Cedric's phone number. Also, you know anybody in the justice system that's just struggling? Website, reentrysf.org. You can self-refer into programs right there. You can come to our reentry center and access clinical substance use help across the board. And number three, continue to stand up for the right thing. If nothing else you hear from my mouth, stand up for the right thing, because the truth will always come out and a lie will always run out. So thank you again. It's been an amazing show. I'm looking forward to part 2 and your future work in the community, man. It's amazing. Thank you.
Now, there you go, community. Y'all stop texting me talking about when y'all having part 2. Me and Steve, he's committed. We will put a part 2 together. Stop asking me when it's part 2. But with that being said, hey, Steve, thank you, for your passion, your commitment. Cedric and them, what y'all doing a positive direction, like community. Let's connect with these folks. We want to give a huge shout out to Marianne Jones, Dr. Jones over at Westside. They committed to this work. Okay, we ain't gonna forget about the people that's doing the work. Okay, and what Steve and them is doing with Westside and what Craig and them and Cedric is doing is powerful, powerful stuff. We need to get behind them. They have the answers. They know what's going on. We have to believe in our community and understand that our community leaders can lead this change. But as community, we have to get behind them and support them. We don't need to just boycott KTVU. We need to go out here and boycott some of these people that are not doing the right thing to impact our community. If 30,000 people could boycott KTVU, when Cedric, Craig, and Steve Adami called us, we should have 30,000 people on these calls advocating for change in our city and change across this country. With that being said, we're going to pass over to Brittany because I know she's ready to go, y'all. We holding her up. But every week, so eloquently, Brittany always wraps up the day with a call to action. She recaps what happened today. I don't know if it was the Progressive Party. I don't know if it was the District Attorney's Office, but somebody killed it today, Brittany. But give us a call to action and recall today.
Somebody tried to silence us. Okay, well, I just want to thank the panelists for coming on the show today. I really enjoyed, talking with you all and learning a lot about our city and about homelessness. So for my call of action, I actually am just going to reiterate a lot of things that you all said, which I thought were really good points. And then something I had also brought up earlier is the need for more comprehensive programming. When we're treating the whole person, we have to ensure that they have increased access to mental health services, behavioral health services, medical services, social connectedness, healthy foods, and a lot of that stuff can take place when we have people in housing settings or more controlled environments. But I also hear that there's a need for more innovative programming. So I definitely encourage organizations to step on out there and just try new things. Come out with pilot programs, develop programs that you can try out in the community to do more evidence-based models that will in turn, cause for more innovation in our communities. And then lastly, just, talking about policies, we talk about how policies can come from the state down or from the city down, but, our school systems can implement policies to impact communities. Our local organizations can implement policies to impact our community. So we don't just have to wait for something to come down. Like, we can be the change. When we talk about accountability as organizational structures, as advocates in the community, we can be the change to get out there and help increase the health and save the people in our community. So that's my call of action for today.
Wow,
Thank you.
very, very, very powerful. As you all see how Brittany every week brings us all back to this sacred place at the end. Before we go, I just want to thank everybody, adult probation, reentry, Cedric, Victoria, Erica, Thomas. These conversations here is the conversations that really move our communities forward. And, that's our belief here at both sides of the conversation. Through communication, a healing process begins. You all heard from some of the most powerful movers in our community. Listen to Brother Cedric. Listen to Brother Tom. Listen to Victoria. Listen to Steve. Listen to Cedric. This is great information, community. This is why these shows are so important. And this is why we have to get behind and support each other. And, today was powerful. It was very emotional for me up and down to see what's going on. I'm out there every week and every month feeding those in need. So I see this firsthand. And it's just great that we was able to project that to the community. Sometimes we get busy in our own life. Sometimes we get busy doing other things and we don't understand the impact, what's happening with some of these things in our community. And it was just great to have you all here to just highlight that and push that out to the universe and to the community so that we all could be a part of this. It's going to take us all. I heard somebody say it's going to take us all. Don't matter if it's the police, if it's our elected official, it's going to take the whole community to put our brains together and think tanks and figure out how to resolve the issue, because it is an issue and it's not going to go away if we all just point our fingers and say it's your fault, it's your fault, it's your fault. Let's become solution based. Let's be collaborative. Let's work together. There's different models, there's different opportunities, but let's utilize this to work together to make change for our community. I am tired of seeing the elders of our communities afraid to go to some of these areas because the behaviors and some of the things that happen through the substance abuse. I hate to see our young people, like Victoria said so eloquently today, can't go to the park, can't enjoy a slide, can't enjoy just going to a neighborhood event without having to walk over human feces, without having to walk over needles. We have to do better. It's going to take us all a little bit of work. To our elected officials, you guys have to listen to the community. We put you in office to make change for the community. We don't put you in office for your ego and for your own intentional goals that you're trying to do for yourself and your career status. This is about the community. The community will come together. We will stand together and make sure that we march forward in solidarity. DPH, you're on the record. You're on the call. We're not letting you off the hook. You're the largest department, the largest funder. You have the responsibility to make sure that the proper organizations, the proper models are put in place to impact the community, because again, if you don't, you're just as bad as the person that's perpetuating the damage and further harm to our community. I'm going to walk in solidarity with my brothers and sisters on this call today. We are calling you out. It is time for the organization and the leadership to step up, do their part to make sure that our communities are impacted. We have the most beautiful city across the world. People from all across the world want to come to San Francisco, and it is embarrassing to walk our streets and see the homelessness, the drug abuse, and see some of the mental health issues that are being impacted, this crisis that we have here in San Francisco. We have to do better. All department heads, all department leaders, all community leaders working together to fix this problem. I'm looking forward to being a part of it. Both sides of the conversation, we will highlight it. We will be there. We will march through this. We are making history. Right now, it starts with these conversations moving forward. So thank you all for tuning in. Sorry for the technical difficulties today. We don't know who was attacking us, but definitely I want community to continue to pray for all the panelists today, because in this work, when you're advocating and you're fighting for the right cause, the negative energy, the negative folks that's out there trying to put down the good work, we need prayer, we need support, we need love, we need uplift, we need action. And it takes all of us. Please look out for the people in the community. Pray for us leaders that do this work and advocate for community. It is hard. We are being attacked as well in different ways, different times, and we need that love and support as well from community. So thank you all. And I have to make a correction because my phone keeps blowing up. I made a comment early. The San Francisco Giants are in the playoff. They beat the Padres today. San Diego is out. The Giants is in. I don't know what happened, but my information was wrong. Our San Francisco Giants will be in the playoffs. Our San Francisco 49ers lost today, but the San Francisco Giants did make it into the NL West. So shout out to the Giants and everybody that's yelling at me and screaming at me. Before we get off the air, want to make sure that we acknowledge our San Francisco Giants. They will be in the playoffs as they completed the end of the day today with the win. So I had to correct that because they was coming from me. And for all of the people that think people don't have love and compassion in our community, you heard the voices today. You heard the stories. Those were the stories from the folks that was on this panel. It's very rare you get an opportunity to talk to the people that's a part of a cameo, part of a trailer. Okay, y'all heard from Cedric, y'all heard from Craig, y'all heard from Tom, you heard from Victoria. Powerful, powerful folks. It doesn't matter what you look like. We in the fight together. We're talking about equity for the community. We're talking about change for the people. That's what we all about. All power to the people. With that being said, we're going to end today's segment. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you this Tuesday, and we'll have another segment of our Hidden Gems. and we'll continue to highlight our Black and brown businesses and our community leaders, like folks like Cedric, who positively impact our community. People like Steve, people like Victoria. Those are the people we highlight every Tuesday. Check us out. Join our newsletter. We'll be out in the community. We'll see you soon. Have a blessed Sunday. Thank you all for tuning in. We love you all.
Both sides of the conversation.